Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Mo, the co-founder and CEO at Datawisp. Hello.
Hey, how's it going? Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Excited to have you on the podcast. At first, please tell us what is Datawisp.
So Datawisp is a brand new type of data analytics software that focuses on putting the power in the hands of everybody at the company, not just data scientists. BI tools in general are pretty old at this point. You know, the first ones came out 10, 20 years ago, and there's not a lot that's happened in the space. And Datawisp is changing all that with Gen AI and removing all the jargon and complicated SQL and all that from BI tools and just making it really easy for any user to get the insights they need.
Nice. What's the biggest problem that you solve?
The biggest issue has been that there's a huge technical barrier to working with data. So you have to know SQL or you have to spend a lot of time learning one of these tools. Some of them have their own languages that you have to learn. There's like 6 months courses that you can take on Power BI, for example. We wanted to make Datawisp something that anybody can just use on day one without any training and just talk to it like you would if you were talking with a data scientist at your company.
And who is it for? For what types of companies?
So right now, our biggest focus is for product managers and for data analysts at software companies because they're the ones who have to make decisions about the product and often are using a lot of data around usage and customer journey to make those decisions. But that data can be tough for non-technical product managers to go through, or even technical people. Sometimes it's just faster if an AI can do it in 5 seconds, right? So,
right. And can you share a favorite success story?
Working with a game right now that's tripled its user base so far. They've been doing user acquisition efforts and using Datawisp to better understand user journeys of the people that come from different user acquisition like traffic sources. And then based on what they do in the game, if it's desirable behavior, they're increasing or decreasing spend on certain traffic sources. And they've been using Datawisp to do that and have had a lot of good success. So happy for them.
Nice. And basically, how does it work? Explain more simply. So you can import data via multiple integrations, I guess?
Sure. So we have integrations with all the major like databases that you would expect. So basically, anywhere that your data sits, you can connect it directly to Datawisp, and then from there you can ask your prompt in natural language. So whether that's English or even another language, we've seen it work in Polish and Korean. So it works in really whatever language. And then from there on, Wispy, our AI agent, can perform tasks on your behalf. So it can query your database, it can create charts and tables for you. And so based on the question that you ask, Wispy will generate a table or a chart that answers your question and then provide you with a little bit of detail in writing as well. And if your information is stored in a database, Wispy will run a query on your database, on your infrastructure, get the answer, and then return it to you.
So it's more than just a chat.
It's not a chat bot. It's not like if you just put your data into ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It's an agent, so it can perform tasks outside of the chat.
That's great. And how about the pricing? How do you monetize?
So we charge on a SaaS basis. So we charge per seat. So you have 10 people in your company, you pay for 10 seats. Our goal is for everyone in the company to use Datawisp. And so we've set it up in a way where that's possible. You can have it for as many or as few people as needed.
Are you the first company to innovate in this space, or is it a competitive market? How do you see
I think there's a lot of companies now that understand the need for this. So for a while, nothing was happening in BI, and then when Gen AI became big, a lot of companies thought, hey, AI can help solve this problem. We've been working in this space actually before Gen AI. Datawisp was started. We had a no-code user interface where you could do all the same things that you can do with Datawisp now, but instead of natural language, it was, you had these blocks that you can connect together, and it's still much simpler than learning code, but obviously not as easy as Gen AI. I think the biggest competitive advantage that we have is that we actually retained this user interface. And so now when the AI does tasks for you, you actually get a visual representation of everything that the AI is doing. So it's not like a black box like some of these chatbots are. You actually can see all the steps that the AI is taking to do transformations on your data, and then when you have an answer, you can quickly scan and go, oh yes, it did what I asked, right? In a non-technical way, so it's not like showing you
Yep.
SQL; it's showing you something that you can understand as a user.
I love that. How did the company start? What is the story?
So it's a very long story, but we started working together in esports, actually, of all things.
Okay.
And so we had an esports team, and then
Your own team?
a team was called Flipside Tactics.
Okay.
And we competed in Counter-Strike, Rocket League, a whole bunch of other games
Nice.
at a very high level. Like they won a Counter-Strike
Professional.
major, they won RLCS, so the very top team. And they were using data and analytics to train players. So with the lowest salary budget, they were winning and qualifying for major tournaments. And so we started this like basically in-house like analytics company, and then eventually other teams became interested in the software, and broadcasters became interested in this analytics software because they want to show on the screen during the matches, you know, what's happening and stuff. And so eventually this became its own company that we spun out, and we ended up working with a lot of big tournaments and worked with Twitch and
Nice.
did a bunch of cool stuff in that area. And then we realized like this has a lot of potential to grow besides just esports. You know, we want to work with game developers directly. And then we realized that, you know, it's not just game developers that have these issues. Accessibility of data is a problem basically in every large company.
Yes.
And then we decided to start something, you know, new, called it Datawisp, and took all the lessons that we learned so far and built this product.
That's amazing. And does the team still exist?
Yeah, it's the same team. So we added as same founding team, and we hired a couple more people since we've done our fundraise. So
And the esports team, it still exists, or
oh,
do
the
you sell it?
esports team, no. But
Yeah.
but I think this is, you know, looking forward, it has a much more potential
Of course.
than that the esports team. So that's our focus now.
And everybody from the esports team wanted to get involved into Datawisp?
The founding team, yeah. So most of the founding team is here, and we've added some new talent. You know, a developer, a data scientist, and working with a couple more like on contract basis.
Thanks for sharing that. And in what exact year did you start the company?
So it's tough to say because of this history. We kind of really evolved the company over a while. I'd say our first Datawisp prototype was late 2021.
Okay.
And then eventually, you know, we used to do something else before, and then when we came up with the name Datawisp and the logo and everything was about late 2021, early 22. So.
And how big is the team right now?
So we're six full time, and we have a couple of people that help us on various things, but six for now. Hopefully growing again soon.
And you mentioned you raised some funding.
Yeah, we raised a seed round in summer of 22. Yeah, summer 22. We've raised 4 million total to date, and with it have built our, you know, we took our prototype and built it out to a fully working version, and then started scaling it, started bringing on paying clients, and now looking to continue scaling sales. So.
And do you think you found product market fit?
I think so. I think it's tricky because, you know, how much fit is product market fit, right? So there's obviously, if you're doing millions in revenue, obviously you're set. There's at any stage in a startup, you start inching towards product market fit, and you feel like you're getting closer and closer. So we have paying clients. I still think there's some things about the product and about the value proposition that can be improved, and with any company there is, right?
Of course.
But I mean, a lot of the people that we're talking to have the problem that we're trying to solve, and you know, for them, Datawisp can do a lot of the heavy lifting for some of these day-to-day tasks that um, occupy a lot of their time. So we're pretty confident in what we're building.
Happy for you. How did you find your first customers? I guess it was through esports.
So it was actually through like gaming events, and so we were um, going to a lot of like GDC packs events like this, where you meet a lot of people who are talking about their games and showing off stuff. Met actually our first paying customer. We met them at a game show, and I remember they did a presentation. So all the different games there were doing presentations about their game and talking about stuff, and I remember their game really struck me as like it's quite complex and it looked visually very appealing, like really polished, like these guys really know what they're doing. So I went to them and spoke to them a little bit and said, hey, I like what you're building and stuff, and this is what I do, and at some point you may need analytics, and let's chat, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't, it was like maybe 6 months or a year before we actually started working together, but at some point they decided, hey, we need some help with this, and so that's when they started using Datawisp.
That shows the importance of building the relationship prior 1 year, a couple of years. Yeah, a great story.
Your first client, like if you have a B2B SaaS startup, your first clients for sure need to come from like this kind of relationship building, networking.
Yeah, absolutely. Today, what is the most successful go-to-market strategy? How do you acquire customers?
So to date, for us, it's obviously been like warm intros and people that we know and stuff, but that's obviously not very particularly scalable. So what we've done is start formalizing all the things about those first few customer interactions that have worked. So it's, now we're hosting our own events to generate lead as opposed to going to other people's events. And the events, because they're data centric, tend to attract people who already care a little bit about this. So, the people who are coming in are warmer than if we were doing completely cold outreach. Also doing, cold outreach still works. You just have to do it in a way where you're targeting very specifically not just the companies, but the people within those companies that you think are your buyers.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of tools that you can use to do that now. LinkedIn and even cold email still works. So we spend a lot of time qualifying and saying, okay, well, our exact target person is a product manager working at a software company making a B2C app or a B2B SaaS app between 100 and 50,000 employees. And you go down the list, right? And you get very, very, very specific, and then you start sending emails, and people respond.
Yeah, that's a good advice. Thanks for sharing. How about the biggest challenge? What did you say was the most
the biggest challenge?
Yeah,
so it's tough. There's a lot of failed BI companies, and the reason is that unlike some other things that you use every day, right? Business intelligence it doesn't like enable something new or whatever. All it does is help you improve everything you're doing, right? And so it's nobody's problem immediately today, or it's not as urgent for everyone, right? Like if you're thirsty, you drink a drink and you're not thirsty anymore, and that solves the problem immediately. But BI is like slow progress over time. And so sales cycle can be a little bit longer, and it also can be difficult sometimes to find the person whose problem it is, right? Like who's going to get fired because they didn't adopt Datawisp at their company. Exactly. Right? Like that can be difficult sometimes.
Yeah. What's your future vision for the company?
I think I'd like to get it to a place where Datawisp is as common as Excel or PowerPoint. I really think that most companies today are making the vast majority of their decisions based on gut and A/B testing. One thing we realize is that when you're A/B testing, for example, a new feature to your customers, you're showing half the people the wrong thing. And if there's a way to instead of doing that, to back up your decision with data that you've collected, you you can often save yourself that trouble of having to test everything or to just do it by gut and find out later. And I think there's a lot of room for this, not just in for product managers, but really for marketing, for senior executives, for every aspect of the enterprise, right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Now we arrived at the last part of the podcast where I want to hear your background story, basically how you started
How
your
I
career.
started in what? Just like my whole career, or?
Yeah.
So I've actually had a pretty interesting career. I started in finance. So my first job out of college was in equity research at Merrill Lynch, covering bank stocks. Summer of 2007. So my first day on the job was literally like when the stock market hit the highest point, right before the crash in 2007.
Yeah.
And I had my training, and then as soon as I showed up to like my actual boss for my first day of real work, my boss downgraded every single bank that we had in our coverage because things were about to collapse. So that was wild. And so I ended up spending 10 years in finance, working on mergers and acquisitions mostly, doing corporate M&A and strategy. And then eventually I decided that I wanted to do something that was a bit more rewarding personally, because I felt like working in finance was a lot of doing stuff, big deals and stuff, but I didn't personally feel very accomplished. It just, to me, it felt a bit like just moving money around from one place to another.
Yeah.
I wanted to build something, create something from scratch. So I left banking and I started a gaming startup, like social media gaming startup. It's kind of like TikTok for gaming before TikTok and Instagram were used that way.
Okay.
And it didn't go well at all. It failed miserably because I didn't budget any money basically for user acquisition. So I just thought if you build a good platform, like people will come. And obviously that was a huge mistake in hindsight.
Yeah. Come on.
And but from doing that, I started networking more in the gaming industry, because now I was working in gaming, and that's how I met my co-founders. So at the end of this story is where the beginning of the story I told earlier begins. So I met these guys, started working with them on the esports team, and the rest is what we talked about earlier.
I appreciate it. What would be your best piece of advice for a starting founder, or to yourself when you just left finance?
So much advice. If you're starting, I'll try to be a little bit more practical because everyone's like, "Oh man, get co-founders," or I'll try to give you something a little bit like different. Please. If you're starting a B2B SaaS company, have a network that you can sell to. Have a network not only that you can sell to, but like have a network of people that you can get feedback from. Not friends and family, because friends and family always tell you everything you're doing is great, right? Yes. You need a network of potential buyers that you can show your product, like your MVP to, and get real feedback from them as customers. Yes. Early, because getting your first few customers is extremely difficult, and it's even more difficult when your product's garbage and you don't know your product is garbage because all your friends and family tell you it's amazing. So I think one piece of advice, take it here. Make sure you have potential customers lined up before you go build your thing to test it with.
Yeah, that's a very good one. Thank you. I have one last question for you, Mo. What's your favorite B2B SaaS that you use, but apart from Datawisp?
My favorite B2B SaaS that I use.
Or any SaaS in general, not necessarily
B2B. I love Slack and Monday.com. I know that it's like super basic, but it's just like without Slack and Monday, my company can't function. Slack to make sure that everyone can, because we're fully remote. So without Slack, we have no communication. Right. So we use Slack for everything like written, and then we use Discord for if we want to talk to each other real quick. And then Monday.com to keep track of all our tasks and all the projects that we're working on. Because when you don't see each other in person, you need to be able to know what everyone else is working on, so you know how much bandwidth they have. And I
Of
can
course.
easily go on our Monday and I can see all the tasks that everybody's working on. Especially for if you're managing developers, you need you can't just have everyone working on code like randomly. You need to have all the most important tasks, priorities, bugs, everything. For a small company, even if you're just 4 or 5 people, I highly recommend like having a system and doing it structured. Development velocity increases so much when you do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Is
of
there
course.
anything else that you want to share today on the podcast?
Yeah, if you're a shameless plug here, if you want to do more with the data that you have and you feel a little bit limited by the tools at your disposal, check out datawisp.io. And if you want to get in touch with me to chat about any of this, just shoot me an email. It's mo@datawisp.io. So
Thank you
happy
so
to
much.
make myself available.
Thank you,
Yeah, of
Mo.
course.
I appreciate this.
Thanks, Christian.